The night sky over Israel turned into a scene of terrifying beauty as streaks of light pierced the darkness. Iran launched a massive ballistic missile attack on May 24, 2024. Over 180 missiles hurtled towards Israeli cities and military installations. Air raid sirens blared, a chilling warning of imminent danger. Millions of Israelis were jolted from their routines and forced to take cover. The calm of the evening was replaced by fear and uncertainty. Explosions lit up the sky as Israeli defense systems engaged the missiles. The world held its breath, watching in horror as the events unfolded. As the night wore on, the full extent of the attack became clearer. While the majority of the missiles were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome defense system, some managed to penetrate the shield. Explosions rocked central and southern Israel, targeting strategic military bases and civilian areas. The calmness of the Negev desert was disrupted as missiles rained down near the Nevatim airbase. In a display of audacity, the attackers even targeted the headquarters of Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency. The heart of Israel's intelligence apparatus was now under attack. The symbolism of such an act was not lost on anyone. Despite the extensive damage inflicted on military targets, the casualty count remained mercifully low. The only reported fatality was a Palestinian man in the occupied West Bank. The effectiveness of Israel's missile defense system undoubtedly saved countless lives. The psychological impact of such an assault was profound. The sense of security that Israelis had fought so hard to build was shaken to its core. The attack served as a chilling reminder of the ever-present threat that Israel faces from its enemies. The streets of Israeli cities fell eerily silent as residents remained in their homes or shelters. The usual sounds of laughter, conversation, and commerce were replaced by an unsettling quietude. An air of uncertainty hung heavy in the air. The attack had left its mark on the collective psyche of the nation. News of the attack spread like wildfire, dominating headlines and sparking international condemnation. World leaders expressed solidarity with Israel and denounced Iran's actions. The United States condemned the attack, calling it a dangerous escalation. The international community watched anxiously, aware of the potential for escalation. The attack raised questions about Iran's intentions and regional stability. The UN Security Council convened an emergency meeting to discuss the crisis. The sheer scale of the attack was breathtaking. Iran unleashed a storm of steel and fire, aiming to overwhelm Israel's defenses. Over 180 ballistic missiles tore through the night sky. The missiles followed different trajectories, some arcing high, others taking a direct route. This was a coordinated assault, carefully planned to inflict maximum damage. Launched from multiple locations, it was difficult for Israel to respond quickly. The timing, just after 7:30 p.m., caught many Israelis off guard. The roar of the missiles must have been deafening, a terrifying symphony of destruction. Each launch was a deliberate act of aggression, a clear message from Tehran to Jerusalem. Israel's famed Iron Dome defense system sprang into action. Launchers roared to life, firing interceptor missiles into the night sky. Guided by radar, interceptors homed in on incoming projectiles. The night sky became a mesmerizing display of streaks and bursts of light. Each successful interception elicited a cheer from those watching below. The system, while effective, wasn't foolproof. Some Iranian missiles managed to evade the interceptors. The success of the Iron Dome was a testament to the skill of the Israeli Defense Forces. They remained calm under immense pressure. Despite their efforts, some missiles penetrated the shield. The Iranian missiles that evaded the Iron Dome's defenses struck a range of targets, both military and civilian. One of the primary objectives seemed to be the Nevatim airbase, located in the Negev desert, home to a significant portion of Israel's air power, including fighter jets and reconnaissance aircraft. Nevatim was a strategic asset that Iran was keen to cripple. The base was rocked by several explosions, sending plumes of smoke billowing into the sky. Another high-value target was the headquarters of Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, located near Tel Aviv. The attack on Mossad, a symbol of Israel's intelligence-gathering capabilities, was a bold and provocative move, designed to send a message that no target was off-limits. The explosions near the Mossad headquarters sent shockwaves through Israel's security establishment, raising questions about how such a sensitive site could be vulnerable to attack. In addition to military targets, several missiles also struck civilian areas, including residential neighborhoods in Tel Aviv and other cities. While the extent of the damage and casualties in these areas was not immediately clear, the attacks on civilian targets were a chilling reminder of the indiscriminate nature of modern warfare. The images of burning buildings and terrified civilians fleeing for their lives served as a stark contrast to the technological sophistication of the weapons being used. As dawn broke over Israel, a sense of defiance began to replace the initial shock and fear. The Israeli Prime Minister condemned the attack, calling it an act of unprovoked aggression. His voice remained firm and resolute, reflecting the spirit of a nation accustomed to facing adversity. "We have been targeted before and we have overcome every challenge," he declared. "We will not be cowed by terrorism. We will not hesitate to defend ourselves, our people, and our way of life." His words resonated with Israelis, many of whom had spent a sleepless night in bomb shelters. Across the country, people emerged from their homes, their faces etched with determination. The attack had strengthened the bonds of community, reminding Israelis of their shared resilience. And in Tehran, the mood was one of triumphant defiance. Iranian state media hailed the missile attack as a resounding success. The Ayatollah praised the attack as a legitimate response to Zionist aggression. It was a calculated gamble to bolster Iran's image domestically and internationally. The timing was significant amid heightened US-Iran tensions. Iran's actions carried significant risks, potentially triggering a wider conflict. The missile attack on Israel sent shockwaves across the globe, dominating headlines and sparking international condemnation. World leaders expressed their solidarity with Israel and denounced Iran's actions as a dangerous escalation of violence. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to discuss the crisis, with diplomats from various nations expressing their deep concern over the attack and its potential repercussions for regional and global security. The attack highlighted the volatility of the Middle East, a region already grappling with numerous conflicts and tensions. It also underscored the dangers posed by the proliferation of ballistic missile technology, particularly in the hands of rogue states like Iran. The international community was faced with the daunting task of finding a way to de-escalate the situation, prevent further bloodshed, and address the underlying issues that had led to this crisis. The attack on Israel was a stark reminder that even in the 21st century, the specter of war loomed large. It was a wake-up call to the international community, a call for renewed efforts to strengthen diplomatic channels, promote dialogue, and find peaceful solutions to complex global challenges. The world watched, hoping against hope that this crisis could be contained, that reason would prevail over violence, and that a path towards peace could be found amidst the wreckage and uncertainty. To understand Iran's recent missile attacks on Israel, we must explore their tumultuous history. Before 1979, Iran, under the Shah, had warm relations with Israel. The Shah saw Israel as a bulwark against Soviet influence. This alliance led to extensive cooperation in trade and military. The 1979 Islamic Revolution transformed Iran's relationship with Israel. Khomeini viewed Israel as an illegitimate entity. Overnight, Israel became a sworn enemy. Decades of animosity and proxy wars ensued. The Iranian Revolution unleashed a wave of anti-Israel sentiment across the Muslim world. Confronting Israel became a religious imperative for the new regime in Tehran. Iran supported militant groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. These groups, armed by Iran, carried out attacks, keeping Israel on edge. Hezbollah emerged as a formidable adversary, posing a significant threat to Israel's northern border. Despite Israel's withdrawal from Lebanon in 2000, Hezbollah's threat persisted, fueled by Iranian support. Section 3. The Proxy War Battlefield. The Syrian civil war, which erupted in 2011, further exacerbated tensions between Iran and Israel. Iran intervened decisively in support of the Syrian regime. Israel responded with airstrikes targeting Iranian military assets. The battlefield became a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Israel carried out hundreds of airstrikes targeting Iranian bases. The emergence of ISIS escalated the conflict further. Iran and Israel shared a common enemy in ISIS. The fight against ISIS did little to ease tensions. It provided further opportunities for proxy clashes. Iran's recent missile attacks on Israel represent a dangerous escalation. They demonstrate Iran's willingness to directly target Israeli territory. The attacks highlight the growing sophistication of Iran's missile arsenal. Section 1. A new breed of weaponry. The recent attack on Israel marked a significant departure, not just in its scale, but also in the weaponry deployed. The Fattah hypersonic missile sent shockwaves through the international community. These missiles represent a leap forward in Iran's military capabilities. The Fattah can reach speeds exceeding Mach 5, making it difficult to intercept. Its speed and maneuverability challenge traditional defense systems like Israel's Iron Dome. The use of hypersonic missiles signals a dangerous escalation in the region's arms race. The development of hypersonic missiles like the Fattah represents a paradigm shift in modern warfare, posing unprecedented challenges for defense planners. Their speed, combined with their ability to maneuver unpredictably, makes them incredibly difficult to track and intercept. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles can change course mid-flight, making them far less susceptible to interception by ground-based defense systems. This maneuverability is made possible by the unique aerodynamic properties of hypersonic flight. As a missile travels at hypersonic speeds, the air around it becomes compressed and heated, creating a plasma sheath. This plasma sheath hinders communication but allows it to generate lift and maneuver. The implications for regional and global security are profound. Hypersonic missiles could give their possessors a decisive advantage in any conflict. The recent missile attack on Israel, coupled with the unveiling of Iran's hypersonic capabilities, has sparked intense debate about the shifting balance of power in the Middle East. Some analysts argue that Iran's growing missile arsenal, particularly its hypersonic weapons, represents a significant threat to Israel's regional military superiority, potentially eroding its ability to deter aggression and defend its interests. They point to the fact that Israel's current missile defense systems, while highly effective against conventional threats, may not be able to cope with the speed and maneuverability of hypersonic weapons. This vulnerability, they argue, could embolden Iran and its allies, making them more likely to challenge Israel militarily or test its resolve in other ways. Others, however, caution against overstating Iran's capabilities and downplaying Israel's ability to adapt and respond to emerging threats. They argue that Israel, with its technological prowess and its close relationship with the United States, will find ways to counter the hypersonic threat, whether through technological innovation, new military doctrines, or a combination of both. They also point out that Israel possesses a formidable offensive capability, including its own ballistic missiles and fighter jets, which could be used to retaliate against any Iranian aggression. The specter of a devastating Israeli counterstrike, they argue, serves as a powerful deterrent, one that is unlikely to be diminished by Iran's recent advances in missile technology. Iran's missile attack sent tremors through the volatile Middle East. The region, a tinderbox of ancient rivalries and sectarian tensions, teetered on the brink of wider conflict. The attack highlighted the fragility of peace, where incidents can spiral out of control. Iran's actions emboldened its allies, like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, backed by Iran, threatened retaliation. The potential for coordinated attacks added complexity and danger. The attack exacerbated tensions between Iran and its regional rivals, Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Sunni Gulf states view Shia-majority Iran as a destabilizing force. The missile attack deepened mistrust towards Tehran. Coupled with ongoing wars, the attack created a perfect storm of instability. The region faced the prospect of a wider war with catastrophic consequences. The shockwaves from Iran's missile attack reverberated globally, impacting international relations, energy markets, and the balance of power. It was a stark reminder of our interconnected world, where remote events have far-reaching consequences. Investors worried about oil supply disruptions causing market volatility. Oil prices surged, reflecting market uncertainty and fear. This volatility threatened the global economic recovery, adding inflationary pressures. The attack tested the international community's resolve and exposed UN divisions. The US and allies condemned Iran, while Russia and China urged restraint. This deadlock highlighted the challenges of addressing complex international crises. Section 3. The Quest for Solutions. In the aftermath of Iran's missile attack on Israel, the international community faced the daunting task of finding a path towards de-escalation and a lasting solution to the long-running conflict. The challenges were immense, requiring a delicate balancing act of diplomacy, deterrence, and a willingness to address the underlying grievances that fueled the cycle of violence. One of the most pressing priorities was to prevent further escalation and the outbreak of a wider regional war. This required intensive diplomatic efforts to engage all parties to the conflict, including Iran, Israel, and their respective allies, in dialogue and confidence-building measures. The goal was to reduce tensions, manage the crisis, and create the space for meaningful negotiations on a long-term settlement. However, diplomacy alone was unlikely to be sufficient. A credible deterrent was also needed to convince Iran that further aggression would not be tolerated and that there would be serious consequences for its actions. This involved a combination of military preparedness, economic sanctions, and international condemnation, aimed at raising the costs of Iran's actions and compelling it to change its behavior. At the same time, it was crucial to address the underlying issues that fueled the conflict, including the Israeli-Palestinian dispute, Iran's nuclear ambitions, and the regional power struggle between Iran and its Arab neighbors. This required a long-term commitment to dialogue, diplomacy, and conflict resolution, aimed at finding peaceful solutions to these complex and interconnected challenges. Section 1. The Echoes of Explosions. As the dust settles and the smoke clears, a profound sense of unease lingers in the air. The echoes of exploding missiles, a chilling symphony of destruction, continue to reverberate through the hearts and minds of people across the globe. Iran's audacious attack on Israel has shattered any illusions of peace and stability in the Middle East. The events of that fateful night have exposed the raw nerves of a region teetering on the precipice of chaos. They have laid bare the deep-seated animosities and dangerous ambitions that have fueled decades of bloodshed. The world watches with bated breath, wondering if this latest eruption of violence will be a turning point. Section 2. The Uncertain Future. The road ahead is fraught with uncertainty. The specter of further escalation looms large, casting a long shadow over any hopes for a swift and peaceful resolution. The attack on Israel, a nation accustomed to living on a hair trigger, has undoubtedly hardened attitudes, making it even more challenging to bridge the divides and build trust between adversaries. The international community, often divided and slow to react, faces a critical test of its resolve and its ability to play a constructive role in diffusing the crisis. The stakes could not be higher. A wider conflict in the Middle East, potentially drawing in global powers, would have devastating consequences, not just for the region itself, but for the entire world. The search for a lasting solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a conflict that lies at the heart of much of the region's turmoil, remains as elusive as ever. The two-state solution, once seen as the most viable path to peace, has become increasingly distant, undermined by years of mistrust, violence, and a lack of political will on both sides. The international community, led by the United States, must redouble its efforts to revive the peace process, to create a conducive environment for negotiations, and to impress upon both Israelis and Palestinians the urgent need for compromise and reconciliation. Section 3. A Call for Wisdom. In these dark and uncertain times, it is more important than ever to appeal to wisdom, to reason, and to the inherent human desire for peace. The path forward, while fraught with obstacles, must be paved with dialogue, with empathy, and with a willingness to transcend the bitter legacies of the past. Leaders on all sides must resist the siren song of vengeance and the allure of short-term gains achieved through violence. They must summon the courage to choose diplomacy over confrontation, understanding over mistrust, and a shared future over the perpetuation of ancient hatreds. The world, weary of war and yearning for a just and lasting peace, must raise its voice in unison, demanding an end to the violence, a commitment to diplomacy, and a renewed focus on finding common ground. The time for action is now, before the echoes of explosions give way to the deafening roar of another senseless war.